Let me start by adding my thanks to Professor Hubbard and Ms. Pond for their generous gift on behalf of the Department of Economics at the University of Central Florida and its ultimate beneficiaries, the students and the communities that we serve. I'd also like to thank my new colleagues and Dean Jarley for trusting me with this position. It is my aim to charge on to justify that trust through teaching, research, and service to UCF and its missions. Like Glenn and Constance have done so splendidly, I take this opportunity to recognize the teachers who had a big impact on my professional life. I have to start with my parents, Robert and Barbara Solow, both of whom were economics professors. My path to economics was quite different than Glenn's, who was introduced to economics by Professors Xander and White here at UCF. Although we didn't discuss supply and demand at the family dinner table, as some might think, there were always lots of economics books lying around. It was one of these, a little paperback on environmental economics, which I picked up candidly out of boredom in the summer of 1971. Finding it interesting and compelling, environmental issues then as now were a pressing policy topic. I followed that up with the first 6 chapters of Samuelson's Economics, which at the time was the preeminent introductory textbook in the field. And I think I should point out that Glenn and I now share, we are actually friendly competitors because Glenn has a textbook and I am now a co-author of a textbook, so we're in the textbook market together. Good luck. That too, the first 6 chapters of Samuelson, that too made a lot of sense to me, but like Glenn, I went off to college expecting to major in something else, in my case, chemistry. So I guess I should also thank the long since forgotten Yale chemistry professor who taught the organic chemistry class that I had no business being in as a first semester freshman for drastically altering the course of my intellectual development. I had many other wonderful teachers, Don Brown, Charling Koopmans, Bill Nordhaus, Ray Fair, and Sharon Oster as an undergraduate, and John Chauvin as a graduate student. If you were to ask me whose student am I am a John Chauvin student. But by then my path was clear. I mentioned the 3-legged stool of academia, teaching, research, and service, and I'd like to speak a little bit about all 3. My father, whose eminence at MIT earned him the position of university professor, which required no teaching, nonetheless continued to teach until he retired. When I asked him once why he continued to teach when he could devote all of his time to scholarship, his answer was, teaching is part of what we do. And that has always stuck with me. Another person who influenced my perspective on teaching was an anonymous student in my Principles of Microeconomics class who, obviously unhappy with me, wrote on a course evaluation, "I learned more on my own than I ever learned from you." It was such a great line that I started off next year's class by putting it up on the screen. Of course, I tell my students, you will learn on your own. It's the only place that learning occurs. My job, our job, is to help you learn it, much like a coach or a fitness instructor. Moreover, learning is not just memorizing facts and formula. Knowing a lot of facts is great for winning trivia contests, but it doesn't always help one analyze and solve unfamiliar problems. In the modern world, any task that can be reduced to following a set of instructions will soon be done by a machine or a poor person in an undeveloped country, and that's already happening now. Overcoming this notion that education means knowing not just a bunch of facts or routines, but how to think through an unfamiliar situation is one of the biggest challenges facing faculty today. If we are going to help students learn to be creative problem solvers, faculty need to model creative problem solving for them so they can see how it's done. Moreover, it is well understood that technological progress, much of it derived from basic research done at universities, is the single most important source of improvements in standard of living, so the value of research to society cannot be understated. Of the over 5,000 colleges and universities in the United States, UCF is one of the roughly 130 designated by the Carnegie Foundation as an R1 or very high research activity institution, something we can be proud of. It is fashionable in some circles today, however, to urge universities to focus their limited resources on research that has impact, by which it is meant research whose results today can be used in business tomorrow. To my mind, this is a bad idea which should be resisted, and I'll give you an example. Roughly 100 years ago, the field of quantum mechanics was a highly theoretical area of physics research, involving mathematics and concepts that most people even today would find incomprehensible, including the notion that the components of atoms were neither particles nor waves, but both at the same time. Worse yet, it was being done largely by people with foreign names, like Niels Bohr, Paul Dirac, Werner Heisenberg, Erwin Schrödinger, and Albert Einstein. It is not hard to imagine some assistant provost or politician deciding that they can't see the point of spending tuition or taxpayer dollars on such highbrow nonsense which seems to have no practical application. Yet because of that research, today we have these. And MRI machines, which I obviously couldn't bring in, and the entire information and telecommunications technology sector that defines the modern economy. I'm reasonably sure that none of the physicists that I named were thinking about the commercial outcomes of their work or even imagined where it might lead, but talk about impact. Like Glenn, what attracted me to economics was not merely its compelling logic, but its practicality. As he puts it, economics is a toolkit to help make good decisions about careers, retirement, and how we spend our time and energy as a family, corporation, or nation. Unless you think that this story about physics research applies only in the STEM fields, let me recommend to you a book by Robert Lighton of the Brookings Institution called $1 Trillion Economists. In it, he details the impact of basic economics research, not just on the business, financial, and policy spheres where it might be expected, but in other areas like sports and medicine. To give just one example, the algorithm that is used today to match kidney donors and transplant recipients is based on work by economist Alvin Roth, who in turn based his work on theory devised by Lloyd Shapley and David Gale nearly 50 years earlier. Being a university professor is one of the best jobs in the world, up there with Ben & Jerry's taste tester and referee at the annual Animal Planet Puppy Bowl. We have the freedom to think and write about issues that we care about without fear of being fired for saying something provocative or unpopular. We get to work with young people and share their enthusiasm and curiosity and possibly change the course of their lives. We get to have a great deal more say in our employers' operational decisions than in most any other employment setting I can think of. With those benefits comes an obligation, I believe, to invest ourselves in our institution to do more than just do our jobs and go beyond to make our colleges and universities better places through service. That service can be done in many ways, from taking on administrative duties and serving on the numerous committees on which universities rely, to mentoring students and supporting the activities outside the class, their activities outside the classroom, to supporting one's institution financially according to one's ability. Sometimes, as in the case of Professor Hubbard and Ms. Pond, you're in a position to heed the call to serve by doing something truly transformative, and for that we are truly grateful. Thank you.